Hi everyone, Adrian MacNeil from Foxglove here. With me today I have Fred Parietti, co-founder and CEO at Multiply Labs. Tell us what we have here. Tell us about Multiply Labs.
So Multiply Labs develops robotic systems that manufacture advanced next generation drugs, in particular biological therapies. So drugs that are so hard to make, you cannot synthesize them with normal chemistry. You need to have cells make them. In some cases, the cells are the drug. And they're so hard to make, we believe the only way to manufacture them is with advanced robotics technology. So that's our target, together with the broader life science industry.
Is this something that is done today by humans and is more efficient with robots, or is it something that we can't even do today with humans because maybe because of the complexity or the sort of sterile environment requirements?
So I would say humans are essentially the biggest source of contamination for these biological drugs.
Right.
Because humans breathe. And they can sneeze, all the, and so we believe that from a cost point of view, from a throughput point of view, right, from a contamination and quality point of view, the only way to scale, the only way to bring the therapies to millions of people is with advanced robotics, which I guess today physical AI, right? But that's what we're doing.
When did you start Multiply Labs, and was this the original idea that you were focusing on?
Yeah, so we started a long time ago, like about 8 or 9 years ago. And yes, the thesis was always that therapies are being developed more and more for individual patients. What has evolved, I would say, is the rise of these biological drugs. So now it's very clear that the whole next generation of medicine is, antibodies, RNA, cell therapies, gene therapy. And so these drugs are both more personalized, so smaller batch, and incredibly harder to make. So I would say that the market has kind of like accelerated in the direction that we first saw.
So would this actually allow us to have more personalized drugs and maybe solve some diseases that are not solvable today?
There's definitely that, right? And there is also the fact that now there is an explosion of AI for drug discovery. There's billions invested in using generative models to create new drugs.
Right.
And so what is the extreme evolution of that idea?
Right.
That, well, you discover a new drug per patient.
Right.
Because if you can, why won't you optimize the drug for an illness and for a patient?
And if we have models creating all of these drugs, we still need the hardware layer to go.
Who's going to make them?
Right.
Right? Actually, what is going to make them? It should not be a who,
right.
It should be a what.
What?
Right? People already struggle to make enough drugs for today's market. Imagine for these drugs, imagine thousands of new drug candidates. And so it's almost like the whole industry has forgotten that to reach the patients, you actually need to make this. And so that's why it's such an exciting time for us, because we basically represent 50% of the pharma value chain.
So it seems like the next big thing you should launch is an MCP server so that we can hook these agents up to manufacturing your drugs.
We are literally working on it.
So I can have my agents go and produce them.
It doesn't make any sense,
own,
right now to just have just a drug candidate without a manufacturing process.
Right.
So we feel like all these AI for drug discovery companies should also output a process that should be pre-compatible with our robots, right? And so that's it. You can scale.
What is the most surprising learning you've had in the journey so far? What has been maybe the biggest challenge or the most surprising thing about trying to automate these workflows?
I would say I am very happy about the new physical AI wave because we can address through imitation learning, learn basically tasks that were very hard,
right,
or substantially impossible to just automate just by coding. I love that now there are mobile manipulators like humanoids, but I would say we don't need the legs, like wheels are fine. There's no stairs in pharma, right?
There's a lot more off-the-shelf hardware available that you can use.
Like the fact that, it is conceivable now to buy dozens of, by manual mobile manipulators that then we use to load and unload our bigger robots. I mean, this is a dream, right? It used to cost like millions and you need 20 PhDs. Now we give humanoids to interns, right?
Yeah.
So this is cool. So these are good surprises. The bad surprise is just pharma is so slow, insanely slow.
Slower than you even think.
Yeah, slower. Slower than you think, right? And it's always about working with the right people inside pharma companies, actually, get it and trying to move fast. and kind of like be reassuring to the others, hey, we're not replacing your jobs. Absolutely not. Like the robots are doing the boring stuff in the clean room, right? So people are tendentially very happy. So it's more of a scare in terms of oh, it's so different from what they've done so far, and people in pharma really love to do what they've done so far. But as far as I'm concerned, there are a lot of patients that are not getting the right therapies.
Right.
So what they've done so far is not good enough.
Tell me about the data flywheel and how you deploy robots to production and how you turn those into learnings that ultimately make the product better.
Yeah, I mean, it's super important because pharma is almost like an artisanal process, pharma manufacturing, right? They always have one scientist or two that have, there is a thing called gold hands. It's a pharma concept.
Okay.
What is the gold hand? What is a person with gold hands, right? It means that it's a scientist that nobody knows why, not even them, but the yield is way higher. They kind of learn implicitly something, the way they handle the cells, right? That increases the yield. And so when people are poached or retire, yeah, it's a huge problem.
And they have that those people would be successful through multiple companies, that same person?
I'm not sure. I don't have data in terms of like if you are gold hands in one company with that scale. But certainly every company knows there are one or two scientists per step that are the best at. Right. And so for us, that means that fundamentally speaking, there's nobody else we need to train the robots on other than the person with gold hands. But how can you do it? You can't give them teleoperation, right? The scientists are not used to teleoperation, and they're going to behave differently, so you're going to learn garbage, right? You can't use an untrained person. I can't hire undergrads to do this, right?
You need a real expert demonstration.
Only that expert. And guess what? It's only that expert in that pharma company.
Right.
So it's the most confidential and unique possible data. So we now have a whole pipeline to learn, and we're constantly developing and improving it to learn on video demonstration data collected on the gold hand scientists.
One of the things I see across a lot of companies is that once you get to production, a lot of the data that you're collecting becomes less useful. 99% of the data is doing tasks that you're already good at, and then there's this kind of 1% of data that is very complicated, very novel, maybe a sort of long-tail distribution of edge cases. What are some of the examples in the world of pharma about things that might happen that are that are the most useful? Yeah,
keep in mind for us, it's about I would say 90% of tasks. We have already sold them, hard-coded,
right?
Very reliable, no problem.
Yeah.
Too bad every new process adds 5 to 10 new tasks that we've never seen before that are very weird and that people are very particular about. And I'm going to make some examples, but if you don't have those tasks, it doesn't matter that 90 or 95% is already automated.
Right.
You are still not end-to-end. If you're not end-to-end, you still have a human
you're still going to get a human go in there and cough all over everything.
Impossible.
Yeah.
So you still have, bottlenecks. You still have quality contamination problems. In pharma, the way you shake a container changes. So it's not that there's a standard way of shaking. No. Every company has their own way. Sometimes they do a figure 8 and lips. Sometimes it kind of varies, right, according to whatever stage the process is at, right? And so you can't just go there and just stir in a circle. They're like, what are you doing, right? And what if the cells, if you do something different and anything goes bad in the process, then it's your fault, right? Yeah. While if I do exactly the same thing, right, then they know, okay, it's actually the same process, right? There's another set of very hard tasks is handling soft bags that contain cells. You never handle the cells. You handle liquid containing the cells, right? So imagine a soft bag handling that. You don't need to pierce it. If you pierce it, you're throwing away $500,000, dose, right? But you also need sometimes to push bubbles in a particular direction towards the tube, right? Sometimes the cells sediment, so sometimes gravity goes your way, sometimes the other way. In both cases, a balancing problem, either a pendulum or an inverted pendulum on a deformable object that you cannot break.
Right.
And where people have very strong opinions about how you must handle that deformable object.
Are there measures of success? Like they tell you, well, it's very important that you shake this in a figure eight. But if you come in and you say, hey, we've actually had more success doing circles or squares or something, like is there a well-defined measure of success to say we can prove that we can actually get a higher yield or something like that?
So first of all, getting a higher yield, this is another quirk or the quirks of pharma. If you change the biology, it's actually bad because they got approval or they filed for approval with the old biology. So the first goal is the robots needs to be statistically equivalent to the old process, right? And then of course we get lower cost and higher throughput, but just doing that in insane parallelism, right? Our density of products per square foot with a robot is like 100x, 2 orders of magnitude more than the products per square foot you would get in a manual facility. But still, this doesn't change it. For the first time, you need to prove that you're equivalent to the old process.
Right.
And then we get a ton of ideas, and we're like, hey, pharma company, what if you do this, right? It will save you time.
But they might need to go through a whole new approval to do that.
Sometimes they have ideas like, oh, what if the robots do this? We think this is better for the cells. But when you do that, now it's like, oh, now you're actually changing the process.
Right.
So that is a substantially harder proposition in terms of regulators.
What are some of the challenges with deploying robots into a clean environment versus a lot of the robots that we see today that are in factories or warehouses and are just completely covered in dust?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is some more engineering, but I would say there is a huge advantage. Like whatever we do on the engineering side, of course there is some cost, right? More complexity. And then you see the contamination risk just going down. Like every time we see contamination and then you test it, it's a skin bacteria. Obviously, skin bacteria don't live on robots, right? So it means somebody touched something, and we can typically trace it back, right?
Check the camera feed.
Yeah, pretty much, right? And so, nobody wants to do that. It's such a boring job. Imagine, it's a nerve-wracking thing where you are, the guy in the clean room making this $500,000 drug, which, by the way, might be, life-saving for a patient. And then over 2 weeks of a process, if you touch one thing wrong, that's it, right? Must throw it away, contaminated,
Start
right?
again, yeah.
So it makes so much more sense to have robots doing that. So yes, there is some more complexity, but the gain is so gigantic, the complexity is almost irrelevant.
What are some of the challenges you've had as you've started going from the lab and from development into production and now that you're deploying, I imagine, in multiple sites across the country?
I mean, so supply chain. Let's talk about supply chain, right? It's like the elephant in the room. I see so much, well, Fred, but we're just working on making the first POC, right? The first robots. Sometimes people are like, oh, we do our own hardware. And like, oh, where are you manufacturing it? In Palo Alto. Like, sure, right? Palo Alto is the best location to manufacture hardware, at high throughput efficiently. Of course not, right? And so people just don't think, I believe, deeply enough about hardware supply chain. The only people that have been successful are people like, Tesla or SpaceX. Zoox now, they rolled out our new manufacturing line.
They're very vertically integrated.
That took billions and years, and I need to, deliver robots next month, right? And so it is extremely inefficient to make hardware in the US right now. But obviously you can do it in China.
Right.
Because, geopolitically, not viable. So we make our hardware in Europe. And creating that team, 100% of our supply chain team right now comes from Formula One. Right. That's not people you can get in San Francisco.
Right.
And so having that mindset, addressing that scaling challenge is fundamental. If we don't have enough hardware deployed, it doesn't matter all the physical AI we do, right? All the imitation learning, right? Vice versa, if you have all the hardware and the robots are dumb, well, that also doesn't matter, right? If they can't learn new processes.
What other unique parts that you've had to design yourself? Like, are you using off-the-shelf actuators or off-the-shelf robot arms, or
we do as much off the shelf as we can, right? Reinventing the wheel is not wise. It's hard enough this way. So, for example, we don't manufacture our humanoids. We want to buy humanoids. That's another problem because the humanoid, current offer, I think, is inadequate. So yes, off the shelf as much as possible. Even from the software point of view, we work very closely with the NVIDIA team, right? And they have great tools, right? I don't want to write my own simulator. We have Isaac Sim, right? But even doing all of this to simplify your life, there are still so many, essentially I would say core challenges. And I think in pharma manufacturing and in general in the life sciences on the manufacturing side for physical AI, we're clearly leading the way.
Something that I hear a lot today is people saying, well, we don't need these vertical specific robot application companies. There's just going to be one company building a robot brain and a bunch of humanoids walking around doing this. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
They want the real world data.
Turns out it's not even data. If you're a foundation model company, your ideal case study is, selling an API, right?
Right.
But it's really a mess to specialize, right? I mean, now we see Anthropic, we see OpenAI creating almost their own consultancies, right, to bring robots to real-life applications. But in areas that are so, regulated, right, and where credibility is so important, so having real-life deployments, real-life contracts with big pharma companies, we work with AstraZeneca, we work with Legend Biotech, we're announcing many more, right? Like, catching up with that, good luck, right? While you're also developing a very expensive foundation model. So I don't believe that they're useless, right? Of course, there's a lot of use for this technology, but in the end, you need to have a real business model. And I feel like among robotics companies, we are in the very rare situation of having real revenue. You can do it if you own, essentially the application, right? It's almost like saying, well, why does Palantir need to have forward deployed engineers? Can't they just do their model in the sky?
Cloud, yeah.
Right. Well, no. Right. Their value also comes, right? Yeah. At the same time, we're not just buyers of external technology. We do develop our technology specifically for these advanced manipulation applications. About humanoids and special purpose. So technically, right, you could use humanoids for transportation. You could just have a bunch of rickshaws and humanoids,
or they could walk,
are just transporting. You can have a carriage with 20 humanoids in front of you, right?
Right.
Like, is that efficient? Is it feasible? Yes. Is it efficient? Absolutely not.
Right.
So especially in manufacturing, applications, we see like having a humanoids to do what our robots do. You will need like 50 to 100 humanoids, very inefficient, right? What if they break? They're not precise enough. They're not sterile enough, right? That said, I'm not saying only special purpose. I'm saying a mix.
And it sounds like you are incorporating humanoids into some of these workflows.
What we're seeing right now is 80% special purpose, just churn out, be sterile, be precise, and then the loading and unloading, the remaining 20% where you never know where the warehouse is in a facility, right?
Right.
So it makes sense to have a mobile manipulator. You're trading inefficiency for flexibility. It makes sense. So I'm not saying 100% or 0% either way. A sort of reasonable mix. Maybe if you're using a humanoid to clean the house, right, you're still going to have a dishwasher, but the humanoid is going to do most of it. In manufacturing, I think the biggest chunk is going to be special purpose.
Yeah. This long tail of tasks maybe where you want to be easily reprogrammable. I really like to think about the three sort of key pillars of robotics as being these AI models, as being the hardware, and as being the infrastructure layer. And if we can make all of these available off the shelf, then it makes it a lot easier to go build vertical companies that are solving sort of these specialized challenges. And so that was a big part for us about creating Foxglove, was how can we make more of that infrastructure layer available off the shelf. Obviously, a lot of people are working on making hardware available off the shelf, and as you mentioned, a lot of these companies are working on building foundation models to make the AI available off the shelf. So once that is, once those kind of key ingredients are in place, it makes it a lot easier for companies to go and build these kind of solutions for specific industries, specific verticals.
Yeah, and by the way, our team is, our entire team, but in particular for this conversation, the advanced R&D team, we're all very happy, about the idea of, for example, open sourcing some models in the future, because we do work on models. They're just not that gigantic, right?
It's not the special sauce.
But the way you fine tune one, or the way you train a model for a specific, extremely complicated task, maybe the way you incorporate that into a larger model, all of that can totally be open source. I would be happy to basically help the scientific community as well. From our point of view, obviously, the fact is we are never gonna open source the data, right? Because those are not even ours.
It's proprietary, yeah.
It's our partners, right? And that basically gives us a very strong moat. So we get to the problem from the point of view of our data is confidential. As long as we have data, there is strong defensibility. So we can be open source from the point of view of modeling and even research, right? So these are the two angles.
Yeah.
If you believe that your moat is the model, you never want to open source it. But if you believe your moat is the data, then open sourcing the model is fine.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much for joining me, Fred. If people want to join Multiply Labs or find out more, where should they find you?
They can find us online, on LinkedIn, but most importantly at Actuate.
Actuate! Be there, August 18 to 19 in San Francisco.
Do not miss it.